We feel like we're doing something when we're fixing people, but we really can't fix anybody. What people need is to be listened to be heard. And the Bible says, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. That's empathy, not fixing.
I wouldn't mind touching on, because when I with people that have been through a lot of trauma, let's just talk a little bit about a kind of a tougher subject, but a lot of people are not wanting to turn towards church or towards religion because they've been hurt and they've been burned before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's probably a topic too that everybody goes through because we're human. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I believe when you're in a crisis situation, it becomes very apparent that religion doesn't work.
It doesn't.
And people
And now, Ms. Pat, when you say religion, clarify what you mean by that.
Okay. I mean the system of religion. I don't mean God.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
With God, it's relationship. With religion, it's a system. It's a system of rules. It's a system of beliefs, but it's lifeless. And when we get in a crisis situation, that lifeless system doesn't work. We can't manage it anymore.
I like that definition. Yeah.
And we become desperate if we don't stay in anger, because the first thing usually people get angry. Well, it doesn't work. Forget it. I'm just giving this all up. And we need to give up the religious system, but we also need to realize how desperate we are and become that little child and allow Jesus to walk with us, because we are scared. One of the words that when I was in the midst of a lot of my own healing, and I had a lot of fear and everything growing up, and the healing didn't actually begin until a word popped up into my consciousness, and it was my little girl word, I'm a scared. And I was a scared. And I needed not religion, I needed Jesus to hold my hand. And he gave me a picture of myself as a very little 2-year-old on a path, a very crooked, twisted path with Florida jungle on both sides. And like 2-year-olds do, I would drop his hand. Jesus was on the path and he was holding my hand. I would drop his hand and get caught in the jungle. And I'd realize how lost I was. Just that little kid who can't see anything but jungle, terrified, scared, and crying out, Jesus, I'm lost. And the good shepherd who leaves the 99 to come for the one, leaves the path and comes, and he picked me up over and over and bring me back on the path and simply say, hold my hand. And I believe that's the picture of walking through life. Unless we become as a little child, we can't even see the kingdom. We are meant to be little children with Jesus and let him hold our hand and lead us. And we don't know what's around the next corner, but he's already been there and he's got our hand, and we're going around the next corner with him. And it became very simple, very little. Not all this great information and theology and teaching and understanding. It was so simple. I was a little 2-year-old lost little girl who was scared, and the good shepherd would hold my hand. And every time I drop it and get lost in the Florida jungle, he'd pick me up, bring me back, and he never reprimanded me. He smiled at me and said, hold my hand. And that is that simple. I believe that is the journey of life, no matter how old you are. It is simple, but religion makes it hard.
Exactly. I had dreams when I was going through the healing process. You know, I'm a big dog lover, so that's what I trusted. So that's what I would have, a big red dog, kind of like an Irish setter. and I would be on a path, and whenever I would veer off the path, the red dog would run beside me, and I just knew whenever something was going to happen, he was there, and if I made a turn, I just needed to get back to where that red dog was. So for me, it was a dog. It can be different.
Yeah.
But for you, probably a dog represented something very warm and safe.
Love.
And
Yes.
that's how Jesus came to you, as a red dog.
Exactly.
Because he comes in whatever form we need in our woundedness. Because very often we can't handle something more than that. I love in the shack when God appeared in the movie The Shack as a woman. Why? Because he couldn't have handled a man because of the cruelty of his father. And he comes to us as we need him.
Right.
And introduces himself to us in that safe way that we can begin to hold his hand or walk with him where we would have been afraid before.
Yeah, and I think what also can help us in our understanding of God, firstly, going back to how the church or church structures or church systems can sometimes wound us or even inhibit our relationship with God. I just wanted to encourage people. I think we've all been there. And if we don't say that we've been there, we're just fibbing to, fake it to make it, because that's what we're taught to do, and that's what we think we're supposed to do. But I think we've all been there. I certainly have been in there. I've been through, and we can all share war stories of life because life's rough. But I've been through it, through the ringer, and I don't want to get into details, but it was very tough, and it was hard for me to trust anybody from the church because of, like you were saying, Miss Pat, the religious slogans, the religious sayings, just religious words that are thrown at me, like everything's a theological debate. Like my emotions were just a theological debate. And so I didn't really know who to talk to. But what I would say to someone, well, I'll tell you what I did. I was very selective with whom I talked to. I talked to only about 2 or 3 people. I mean, that's a very small fraction of the church universal. And so maybe feel more comfortable talking with more, or maybe even fewer than that. But find somebody you feel comfortable talking with, and even if they're somewhat spiritual, somewhat of a Christian, and just make some type of spiritual connection with them. And I was telling someone the other day, it's okay to heal in slow-mo, right? It's okay to do slow-mo healing. But it's important to not leave the church system altogether, or, just the establishment, because there are people who've been through it worse than you, and they've been ahead of you, and they can help you out. What God has to say to them can buttress you and help you along your journey.
To throw something into that, Stephen, along those lines, there are sometimes we have to forgive a people group. And for me personally, I had to forgive the church as a people group. Not just individual people that hurt me, but the whole group. In order to find God apart from the hurt and be apart from the group. Then I was able to re-enter the church again in a different way. And so there's sometimes we have to, as women, forgive men have to forgive women. There are whole people groups that have to be forgiven.
Young and old,
it really
all that.
helps.
Everything, yeah.
It does, and we're all human. The church is comprised of humans, and we make mistakes, and we need to be able to forgive each other. And I think the most important thing when you go through any kind of trauma is having somebody there that's going to listen and not judge you. And that should be the church, but having people that you can trust, and no matter what we go through in life, just being able to put us in the right direction without shaming us.
Right. Exactly. And not fixing. One of the worst things the church tries to do, or people try to do, is we feel like we're doing something when we're fixing people, but we really can't fix anybody. What people need is to be listened to be heard. And the Bible says, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. That's empathy, not fixing.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think I'll add one more thing with when you go through trauma, the thing that we're taught is how to be quiet, how not to talk, how to keep secrets, and we get really good at it. And so for somebody who's been especially sexually abused, telling that story, even if it's to one other person, that is a critical step, just to be able to trust somebody enough to tell that story. And if they tell somebody that throws that back in their face, that just puts so much more layers that they've got to dig themselves out of. So
well, it's a betrayal.
It is.
And they've
all over
already
again.
been betrayed. So that's very, very damaging.
Just important steps, just to be there for each other, to not be condemning, but to be about love, because that's what God is. God is love, and we're supposed to love each other and help each other.
We walk together. It's
Yeah.
simple. We make everything hard, but the journey is easy. His yoke is easy. His burden is light when we stop trying to do it and start just allowing him to walk with us through the good, bad, and the ugly.